Jim,
Okay.
Bernie Svalstad. I'm president of the Newport Beach Historic Society. And Jim, you've been treasurer for over 50-some years of the Newport Beach Historic Society. And I'd just love to hear how you got started and how this all happened and how the years went along on what the Historic Society did.
Well, I was certainly there at almost the beginning, I think. I remember when we started off, I got a call from a high school teacher named Joe Hamblett. And Joe somehow figured out that I would be a good person to be in the society. And because I'd been around a long time, even at that stage. So he called, and they had a meeting scheduled for the old Legionnaire building down in Newport. And I walked into this huge room with all these people, well, a huge room, many chairs, a few people sitting far away, and I looked and I was a little bit scared because these were all people older than me and a lot more distinguished in a way. Other than Bill Grundy, who I knew, I don't think I knew anybody else on that panel, but there were some, like Les Stephenson was there, and gosh, I can't even, there were probably about 10 altogether. And they had sort of formed the nucleus, and somehow someone suggested that I be treasurer because they thought maybe it would be something for me to do. So I said, okay, I'll be treasurer, and I was. And from that point on, I don't think it was even an election, it was just, it's your turn. And I started off being the treasurer, and I just continued on because it had its ups and downs. It was fairly active in the first 20 years or so, and then after that, it dropped off, and there was not much went on, and then it started up again when you, Bernie, started in. Otherwise, it probably would still be there, sort of, not deceased, but at least very tired and very quiet. So, over the years, I've had a lot of fun times with that society, a lot of good times. It's been a very worthwhile program, I think, to save the things that most of us will simply throw away and not realize they have any historical value. I was thinking the other day about, I have 2 pictures of one of my father's boats that he had built. They're probably the only pictures that exist of that boat. And he had it built at South Coast Boatyard, custom design. The pictures were done by Kent Hitchcock, and I think maybe I will turn those over to the people at the, Sherman Gardens, because they have a collection of Hitchcock's photos, and he was a very famous photographer of marine things in Newport over the years. Yeah, I'm exhausted from this.
Well, take your time.
Well, gosh, I can't begin to tell you.
Did they have many events in that? Do you remember any of the main events they put on over the years?
Yeah, the first few years we would have 2 or 3 meetings a year. A pretty informal group in that Grundy just continued on as the president, and I continued on as the treasurer, and nobody else wanted the job, so we had help at every event. There were always a few people would show up and help us, but generally speaking, it was pretty much a one-man show with Grundy running it, and I would just run along with a checkbook behind him. And I still have some of the canceled check stubs over the years, so I can tell you how much we spent each year until the more recent stuff, which I don't have. So,
yeah. What did you have any main event every year? Like
yes, there were usually one in the fall and one in the spring.
Is that just a dinner, or did they have like a swimming contest or beauty contest or any other kind of events like that?
We never had a beauty contest, although we had a few waitresses that were pretty well qualified, I would say, over the years. No, there were generally one big one in the spring and one big one in the fall, And there might be a few others that were fairly minor, not even with dinners, just presentations or something. But I could give you the dates of every single one of those from the checkbook stubs, but I can't give you much more than just the amount we paid and to whom. And that's about it.
Well, everybody should know, Jim, that you took over when I got involved in about 5 years ago or so, and it was 2015, excuse me, and you had all the records and everything. I really appreciate that. We weren't able to get anything else particularly, but from the past. But I think that anything you can remember about any other events that were on or happened, what happened in those years in Newport, aside from the Historical Society possibly?
Well, you know, when you have lived for 93 years, as I have, almost 93, a month to go, and then you kind of get so many memories you don't really know where to start reciting them. Let me just sort of tell you about me. I didn't mean to have this
that's great.
turn out to be a autobiography or something.
That'd be great, yeah.
Basically, let me just tell you how it goes, and then you can intersperse what you want. My parents moved here in 1934, and I was in the second grade, 6 years old at the time. They moved first, they came down in the summer, and we stayed a week or so down in Balboa at one of the big old sort of houses that they use for that. And then my parents decided they would stay here. They just had come for a visit, but they decided to stay.
And they were coming from what city?
Pasadena.
Pasadena.
So my father was portable in that he did not have a job. So therefore, he came with the blessings of the people who supported him, which was my step-grandfather, James E. McMurray. And old James McMurray was a very rich man, and he and his mother, he was my step-grandfather. My step-grandmother was my father's mother. Anyway, we moved on to Lido. There are 3 houses on Lido that are all built right side by side with little towers. They're down about halfway, and we moved into the farthest one of those and lived there for a couple of years. And during that time, my father had a house built for us further towards the east, or the west. No, east. Anyway, further down at 835. Dad built that with the help of the builder, a guy named, I'll come back to Gordon Finley. And we moved in there about 1935 or 6 and lived there until 1953, during which time, of course, Lido really changed. It was totally different at the end. When we started off, we had a lot of vacant lots. And as kids, when you have a vacant lot, it's a place to play. And we did. We dug holes and made forts and shot off firecrackers and did all the normal stuff you do. And during the war years, we were all very careful. That was the years I spent in high school was during the war. So we had a very limited number of things that we could do and get away with, of course.
What high school did you go to?
That's Newport Harbor High School. Okay. Graduated in 1946. And gosh, there's so many things that come out of that. My classmates, George Yardley was famous.
Oh, yeah.
Bard Howe was probably the wealthiest. He was in the stock market in New York, and among other things. And I guess they had several attorneys came out of it, and a couple of doctors. Dr. Renato, the son of the original Dr. Monaco, who sort of began down here very early on. And He was in my class. I think he's still alive, but you lose track with the virus and all. You just don't go out charging around looking for friends. It just doesn't pay. Okay. Anyway, grew up, went to Harbor High School, then went to Berkeley. I intended to be a zoologist. Didn't work out. The reason was because I couldn't get, I was almost straight A student in high school, but in Berkeley I discovered I was about a straight C student, which was not acceptable if you're going to be a zoologist. You have to be stronger in your major than that. So I came home to my father and I said, what am I going to do? He said, why don't you go to law school? That's a good idea, a good background for business. So I said, okay. And unlike today, where it's very difficult to get in those days it wasn't. I was a good student and I did well on the SAT, but I didn't have the qualifications that many of the kids have nowadays. It was relatively easy. I had a pick. I could have gone to a couple of different schools, but I decided USC was my best choice because it was closer to home. I didn't want to fill out that lab application for Stanford. They had a very long application you needed to fill out, and I didn't want to do it. Didn't bother, actually. I could have done it. But no, went to USC, and that law school was a different experience because I was all by myself. A couple of times I had roommates, and but most of the time I was living by myself up in that district of around USC, which is, of course, changed greatly since those days.
You remember many famous SC people when you were going there, or right after you were there?
You mean at SC? Or?
Yeah, at SC.
Gosh, no. When you're in law school, you don't really do much.
Too busy.
Yeah, you're too busy. You study day and night.
Yeah.
But on Lido, we had a few celebrities. We had Tyrone Power next door to us for one part of one summer. And then, of course, who else lived there? I think Powell. I think maybe she lived there, Dick Powell's wife, or widow. And, of course, we had the comic who wasn't there very long either, the guy that was, oh gosh, he's part of the Rat Pack. I forgot.
Yeah, not really.
Anyway. All right, well, now back. During the war, one of the things that we could do, which was kind of a neat thing, was gasoline was rationed. You could not, you got a slip of paper that said you were in this category or that category, and therefore you could go to the gas station, and with this slip of paper, an A, B, C thing, you could buy so many gallons of gas. Great, But there was never any amount of gas for us kids to drive around with. It was practically zero, So we've got around it in a very neat sort of way. We had a little launch that needed gas, and it got a category that allowed us to buy gasoline for the launch. So we would go to the gas station, the Marine gas station, fill up the tank, come home, siphon it out, and use it to drive around. So we never had a real serious problem with gasoline.
That's great.
Very inventive for kids,
How did you see Newport grow? In other words, you were down at Lido. You got from Lido to where?
Well, it's a funny thing, but Lido, all of Newport was very parochial, if you will. The people that lived on Lido, the children, didn't associate with the people in Balboa very much, or Balboa Island, or Corona del Mar, where almost nobody there. But anyway, the people, they were little pods of individuals, and transportation was a problem. To get from Lido to Newport or Balboa is a long trip when you're a kid. Bicycles, sure, early on, but when you get, younger than that, you can't. There's just no way to get there. Your parents have to drive you. Well, that doesn't happen often, and it's not really a good plan. So we have no solution to that. I occasionally now will meet people who grew up on Balboa Island, and they're still that way.
Huh.
If you're a Lido person, you're a Lido person. If you're Balboa Island, you're Balboa Island. If you're Balboa, you're Balboa. It's all very much broken up into little pods of people. So, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Except occasionally we have rival organizations such as the Balboa Island Historical Society, which seems to be moving along fairly well.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's amazing. You see, basically, when did you move from Lido to here, or how did that work from?
Well, after I graduated from law school, Uncle Sam decided they needed me.
Yeah.
This was the end of the Korean War, I think, or thereabouts. And so I got taken into the Army, and that's not a Newport story for me. The Army is I'm probably one of the few Army people who wound up with a private office and a secretary, and never during that time did I get off the KP list. The whole Army I spent on the KP list every couple of weeks, but I had my own office and my own secretary to do the work. So yeah.
What's a KP list mean? What's a KP list mean?
Well, the KP was when you had to do kitchen police, where you learned how to cook large amounts of food very quickly for hungry soldiers. And it was very messy, and it took a long time to clean up, and it wasn't very pleasant. Sometimes the cooks were nice, mostly they were not. So you remember odd things, like they had a great big barrel, ceramic barrel, about 1.5 feet high, or a big barrel thing, and inside was rough. So in order to clean enough potatoes, you can't peel them. So we just dumped them in, and this machine would roll around and take all the skin off. I always like that. We should have them at home, but they're too big. So anyway.
How did you move from the service into your legal business, or how did that work?
Okay.
Were you in a law firm, or your own law firm, or?
When I came out of the service, I decided I would get my savings together and take a trip to Europe, because I had never been anywhere like that. So I did, and I went to Europe for 5 months, and then when I came back, I got married to Phyllis and started my law practice here in Newport with 3 other established attorneys, Don Harwood, Tom Heffernan, and Mark Soden, and I started as a sort of an apprentice, and got to get a few little crumbs from them and a few little things of my own, and then eventually we parted company, and I went to practice some more with Lloyd Blanpede, who later on became a judge. But this, I was in the Lido area. My office was always down there until many years later when I moved to Newport Center, and then finally Corona del Mar, and then End.
In that Lido shopping center type thing on the water there? Right?
Yeah, I had the good chance to become the attorney for the guy who owned all the land in there, a fellow named Earl Sawyer. And he had been sort of taken advantage of by one Don Cole. He had leased the land to Cole for 20 or 30 years with no increase at all. And it was a good deal for Cole, but Earl really got upset about that after he figured out what they'd done to him. But nothing he could do, It was fair for him. Anyway, I practiced real estate law and got a job, temporary sort of, in the evening teaching real estate law at Orange Coast College. And I did that for 22 years. Occasionally. It was a job during the school year. One night a week I would go and lecture for a couple hours. And I built my practice out of that in large measure. And it was good to stand on your feet and talk. For that length of time, you learn what a teacher goes through. You have to design your exams, and funny things happen. Like I designed a question for one of my exams, and a couple of years later I looked, and there it was. It was now on the state exam. They had pirated my question, and no compensation to me at all. But
now, where did you and Phyllis live when you first got married, and then?
Yeah, we got married and came. Phyllis was from Seattle. I had met her when I was in the service up there, and we came down here, and we started off. I think we may live for a month or two with my Phyllis's parents who lived here.
Where was that? In Newport?
I think in Corona del Mar. Well, we were on Fernleaf Avenue in Corona del Mar for a while, and then moved to Hazel, and then here. 50 years here in this location.
Oh, boy.
So, time goes by. It really does.
So now, you don't remember, did the Historical Society have any major events aside from the dinners, or is it just dinners all the time, and then maybe speakers come in, type of thing?
I don't think the dinners were very popular. Almost all of them took place in the later years, anyway. It took place at the Pavilion. Yeah. There were a few at other locations, but they were not generally as well done, if you will. They were the service and the food, and they had just worked out the system so well over there at the Pavilion that it was hard to go anywhere else. So we probably had maybe 50 dinners there over the years.
Oh.
We didn't have too much reason to have a meeting anywhere else of any importance, because people would not come out in the evening to see somebody dedicate a monument or something like that. They just you don't get them. They're home.
It looks like the Historical Society put up a lot of monuments back, and for different businesses all around the city.
We had plaques. We still have them somewhere around. We decided to recognize some of the landmarks, and we set up a series of landmarks with a bronze plaque, which we would then install with a ceremony. But it had to have the city's approval, of course, because you always needed that. And of course, the city paid for all of this, so we weren't out of pocket anything.
Really?
And there are between 10 and 20 of them, I think.
So the city actually paid for them. That's interesting.
Well, we didn't. I don't remember. I think the city paid for them. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But they were ours, supposedly.
Yeah.
So.
We have pictures on our website of all those, and
I think there are a few on there. Yeah.
So
there were.
You remember any other type of things that the Historical Society did, particularly?
No, I think early on, the plaques. Oh, we had Ellen Lee's book. Ellen Lee was the wife of a William Lee, who had been an attorney in Costa Mesa and then got appointed to the bench. So she was the wife of the Bill Lee, the judge, and she wrote a book about the history of Newport. I have it, I think, somewhere, and it was well received. It sold. She gave it to us. Gave the ownership of the book to us, and we still own it, I'm sure. But that was a good thing. But other than that, I haven't triggered anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to kind of tell us about Newport, or anything that you've seen, the big changes, obviously, and
well, having lived as I have here, I can drive around and look at a building, and I can tell you a lot about that, sometimes, a lot about that building that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you'd been here like I have. You take the Starbucks over in Corona del Mar, on the corner there, or whatever that corner is.
Yeah.
That used to be a gas station, a Shell gas station. And the lady that owned the land was the wife of the doctor who was a veterinarian in Corona del Mar, further down south on the other side of the street. And she and he did not get along. She was a very strong woman. He was, I guess, a fairly strong man. Anyway, she became my client for a brief period of time because she was very hard to deal with. But that's one of those things that you remember how difficult people were when you were just trying to help and they were just trying to, thwart your help.
Yeah. Now, do you have any children? Or
Pardon?
Do you have any children that...
Do I?
Yeah.
We have three.
Three.
I don't have them. We have them.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And 3 children, if you count, the oldest is now 63.
Oh, okay.
So one of them is here today.
Okay.
He's the youngest, and 50-something, and a girl in between, a boy and a girl and a boy. And we're happy with them most of the time. They're happy with us most of the time.
That's good. Good. I think that gives us some good ideas. I was mainly interested, which you told us a lot about the Newport Beach Historical Society. So I really appreciate that and everything you've done for us over the years. And you're on our honorary board now, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for us. So
well, you're certainly welcome, and it has been an interesting ride from my standpoint. I think pretty much I've enjoyed just about all of it.
Yeah.
Occasionally you get a glitch when it's not nice, but for the most part, it's been a great place to live. You couldn't trade that for just about anywhere in the world, I think.
Yeah.
And
well,
all things considered, it's very, very good.
I want to thank you for this interview and oral history, and we'll have it on the website eventually.
Oh, no. Jeez.
Unless you don't want it there.
Well, no, you do what you want with it, because I agreed that, I could talk about it.
Yeah, well, it's important to know how things progressed over the years. So.
And they did.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah.
And thank you.